thank you, and thank you both for coming today to our Tea Talks. And I'd like to say today we, with the Coalition of Hamilton Indigenous Leadership, CHIL, we are continuing with our Tea Talks. And today I have two beautiful women with me who are going to talk a little bit about themselves and maybe a little bit in the educational field, because that's kind of where they are. I'm Yvonne Maracle. I'll be your host today. But looking forward to this and learning much, much more about these two fantastic ladies. So I'm going to start with Monique, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure, Ani Bojo. I'm Monique Lavallee, and I work with Nawasa Kandaswanteg.
Thank you. And Leah?
Yes, thank
you. Want to
you.
Introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Leah. I am currently working at Niagara College as the Associate Director of Indigenous Education.
And again, thank both of you ladies for coming. So you both have backgrounds in the educational field, right? But what I would like to do is I'd like to learn a little bit about the person. So I'm going to start with Monique over there, if you're okay with that. And I'll start with you. And if you can just tell us a little bit about how did you come in? Were you born in Hamilton?
I wasn't.
You was? Okay, so tell us a little bit. What brought you to Hamilton?
So I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the United States, yes. So my dad was an iron worker, and he traveled all around for work, and my mother is a nurse. And my father was injured on a job site, and he went to the hospital to get some care, and that's where my parents met. And so they were together ever since then. So I was born in Pittsburgh, and I went to preschool in Pittsburgh, and then we moved back to Canada when I was around 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we lived in Buffalo for a little bit too before that, but then we landed in Hamilton. We landed in Hamilton for many reasons. One, this is a steel town, so this is where work was for my father, but also because it was close to our home community of Neoshingaming.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that about it. I'm finding out so many fascinating things about everybody, about where they came from, and it's surprising. I just assumed everybody was born in Hamilton or close to it. And Leah,
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit what brought you to Hamilton, or were you born in Hamilton, or?
I was born in Hamilton.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born, I think Liberty Street was my...
Liberty Street.
Yes.
Yes.
And then in most of my formative years, I grew up on Roxborough, which is a Hamilton City housing project there.
Yes.
Really great memories there, and so that's where when I think of home, I think of Roxborough.
Okay.
I do.
And just to let the audience know, and I know when she said Liberty Street, it just came up because, believe it or not, I've known Leah a long time. I used to babysit Leah and her brother.
Yes, you did. Yep. And our moms are best friends.
Yes.
And her sister Bev is my best
Yes.
friend. Yeah.
So it's funny, small world, and that connection from long time ago too. So it's funny when you said Liberty Street. It's like, oh yeah, memory from the past. So going back to you, Monique. So you're saying you came back into Hamilton, and I want to tell us a little bit more about yourself. What led you to Nawasa?
Well, first of all, when you said Roxborough, that resonated with me. I grew up in the Riverdale in the McQueston neighborhood. So we lived on Adair. So I think what led me to Nawasa really was one of my cousins had her daughter in Nawasa. They had just opened up, and my cousin invited me. Our children were the same age. My daughter and her daughter were the same age, and invited me to come to this Indigenous program called Aboriginal Head Start, and my father was in St. Peter Claver School for Boys in Spanish, and I said, no way.
Oh, okay.
Like, do you really think I'm sending my child? My dad didn't talk a lot about residential school until I was much, much older, but I knew good things didn't happen, right? So,
right, yeah.
So I was like, ooh, like, why am I going to send my child to this place where, like, I don't know what's happening, I don't know the people there. Anyway, she convinced me just to try it. She said, come out, you can stay there, you can volunteer, there's lots of programs happening. So I did. I went, enrolled my daughter in Head Start, and I started volunteering at the Head Start and found out that there was a whole community that I didn't know about.
Yes.
We had our, our family and our extended extended folks, but there was another community out there that was happening. And Nowassa was like this little seed of bringing back all of the things that we lost through residential school, right?
Yes.
Our language, our cultural practices, our familial relations, our clan systems. So Head Start for me wasn't just about my child being immersed in those things, but Head Start's about the entire family. So there were parent programs, there were elders that came in to give us traditional teachings, and that's really where I started on my path back to reconnecting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you started off as a parent, actually,
Yes.
before where you are now.
Absolutely. I was a parent.
Okay, well, I'm going to pick on Leah now. And what led you to Mohawk? Like, I know you're Niagara, but I know a lot of my memories are with you at Mohawk. So what led you there at your path?
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's important to acknowledge Mohawk, right? It's a part of my life for 17 years.
Yes.
I grew up there, and that was where my world was opened up to education. So I actually, interestingly enough, applied to Mohawk because I had a commerce degree, so I was looking to get into HR.
Okay.
And so this job showed as an Indigenous recruiter. So I thought, of course, in my HR brain, that it was to recruit applicants. And so as I went through the interview process, I learned very quickly it was about recruiting Indigenous youth and maybe more mature students to consider coming to post-secondary. And I was absolutely amazed by just how rewarding that career was. And I fell in love with education at Mohawk, right? So I fell in love with going to various First Nation communities and talking to community members and letting them know that they can, you know, if this is what they want, that they're welcome there and they have the ability to obtain education, right?
Yes, yes.
And then I think part of I remember the time when I really was like, this is it, was I would recruit youth, and I'd see them in high school and they'd be very insecure, not sure what to do. And then maybe a year or two later, I see them in the hallway and I see them there and I just see them thriving. And just to watch that transition from like curiosity to actually going into the journey of education was so rewarding.
Yes.
And so from there, it was just nonstop, right? Where I then actually went back to school to get my Bachelor of Education at that time to really learn a little bit more. And yeah, just education for me is medicine. So I'm very lucky to be doing what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go back to Monique a little, because again, we were finding out a little bit more. So not only the education, but you've done other things. Both of you have done other things during your journey. So I just want you to comment on them too, right? Like, you know, some of those other activities. You talk about, both of you have talked about going to other communities to learn or going to other places to learn, right? You want to share any of those stories? Let's start with Monique. Do you have any stories to share like that? So on your learning your journey, again.
Well, I think for me, once I started to reconnect, it was really about, I started to seek out elders. I had this, you know, when you're not connected, there's something missing inside of you. It's really what is the connection to our ways of knowing and being, right? And so I started searching out elders in different communities and, you know, traveling around when I could to socials to learn more, but also to sit and listen and to hear those teachings. And that really set me on my trajectory as well. And I actually went back to school for social work because I knew that I wanted to work in our community. And so I think I had some really wonderful teachers as well in social work that fostered that way of being and also the connection to land. So that's really important for me too, through a lot of our work and the work that we do too. Today is really looking at connecting to the land and all of creation and how that can happen in education, really.
Using education,
Yes.
but okay, and I'll turn our way. And that's personally what I think is, in order to change our history, it has to be through education. It's the work you guys are doing. But it has to be done at the very early age, like at Nowassa. And again, like I had a granddaughter that went through Nowassa. Right? I had a nephew go through Nowassa. The only thing that saddened me about that process is it didn't continue. They get all this knowledge at that base to make them strong and they feel comfortable, they know who they are. and then they're kind of like thrown out there to mainstream. And then they have to survive for how long until they meet a lovely person like yourself at the college level then, right? So Leah, can you tell us more about that journey? Like, again, I expressed how I felt about education. You said you loved it, and you want to comment more on some of your travels, your journey on that way.
Right. So interestingly enough, the turning point for me in education was I was young, so I was probably about 16. And my mother, I don't know if you remember, but my mother went into the hospital and she was not doing well, so she was in there for 8 months. Okay. And her health wasn't doing really well. So I, was struggling in school. And so principal called me into their office and I thought, finally someone noticed, right? So I went in and it was not what I was expecting, right? It was more around the idea of, it was more of a reprimand and saying, you're not attending school and you'll never get anywhere without attending school, which is a fair comment. However, what he didn't ask is why? Right? He didn't probe and ask that question. And so then he says, and then he kind of sat, I remember, and he sat in his chair, like, what do you want to do with your life? And at that time I was like, I want to be a nurse. I want to go to university and be a nurse. And he's like, you won't make it to college. Right? And that's a principal, and he was a doctor. And so that really resonated with me. And for a couple of years I believed him. And then I got angry, right? And then it was like, no, that's not true, right? So then I decided as an adult, I didn't graduate high school in your traditional way. I went back as an adult to complete my high school. And then, so then when I talk about my role as a recruiter, I saw myself in those students that were like, I don't know if I can do this, am I smart enough? All those doubts that you have in sometimes that you hear outside or maybe you carry within. And my hope was to kind of reach those students. And so, long story short is I went to university and did my master's, and now I'm currently in my PhD, and it's all really stems from a couple things, but one of them was that turning point of that principle that I really wanted to prove wrong, and I wanted to let them know, right, that they were wrong. So that's what education, that's how powerful it is for me. And I also, I grew up, we were poor, I guess. Well, we weren't, and I remember everyone always saying education is the way out, right? And if I didn't hear it, I heard it 100, maybe 1,000 times in my...
Because I know my parents were always, just go to school, just go to school. That's all they wanted, just go to school, because I think that in their minds, that's the way they've seen it too, the way out, or to get somewhere. You had to go to school, right? Even though my father came from residential school. My father only got a grade. Dad got grade 5, Mom got grade 7, right? So that's what I mean. For me, when I graduated grade 12, I was the big thing, right? Woo, we got grade 12, right? Yeah. And but it took me a while to go back for college courses. So Monique, you want to add to your journey there?
Sure. I think I mean, my experiences in mainstream education it's very rigid. It wasn't similar to you, Leah. It wasn't a supportive, holistic way of thinking about students and how we can support them. And so I think I saw education at the time, and still actually do, mainstream education as a vehicle to get to where we want to go. I need to have this piece of paper. I mean, there's lots of learning too, but I'm currently now in another program, an Indigenous education program, but through a mainstream institution. And their ways of knowing and being really haven't changed much. And so this is another chapter in my life around the reason I want to further my education in this field is because that gives us, that's my vehicle to start changing things. So, when we talk about like land-based education, right now our children are outside on the land at least 3 times a week. They're going out into the community or to Six Nations or to the farm, and we can learn. We don't need to be in classrooms.
You're absolutely
to
right.
learn. Yeah. We learned in our communities from our Mishomas, from our Nokmas, from our aunties, from our uncles, from the time we were little, all of our, the things that we needed. And math is it's outside, right? Yeah. We look at the cosmos and the stars and the cosmology and the environment and all of those things can happen outdoors.
Yes.
And they can happen, and they do happen in concert with our knowledges and our ways of knowing and being. And so that's what drives me, around education, is so that we can move things forward for our people, to be more reflective of our traditional ways of knowing and being, and that, that they're valid, that our ways of knowing and being in education are valid.
Yes.
And yes, we do walk in the two worlds, and we have the two-eyed seeing, and we need to balance those, but I feel like it is our inherent right as Indigenous people and our children's inherent right to be able to learn with and on the land.
Yes.
I just wanted to also pick up where you were discussing how children are in Head Start, immersed in all these things, and then it's like,
Yes.
parents always come back to us and say, like, it's such a culture shock. We need like, there needs to be something in elementary. And so I think in 2003, we had the community to come together to talk about we need supports in schools for Indigenous learners
Yes.
and families. And so really that community voice coming together started the Aboriginal Education Council in Hamilton, where the public and Catholic school were sitting together with community members, students, families, and also with the Hamilton Community Foundation. And that community coming together, identifying needs for students, birthed the Nyaway program, the Native Youth Advancement with Education Hamilton, which started at Sir John A. Macdonald High School, secondary school. And that really was the first kind of link from, Head Start into the school system. And so there were youth advisors working within the school system to, advocate for students and families, to provide cultural, and social and emotional and academic support. So they had a safe space, a room to go to with someone that they knew, someone who could support them through all of those pieces like you were talking about, Leah, right? When you have those folks there that can advocate and look at the whole learner, the whole person, and that's really everything that's about us is a holistic way, right? We need to be in balance, mind, body, spirit, emotion, and be in relationship. And so I think that project flourished, and we saw, more students graduating, more credit accumulation, more engagement of Indigenous youth in schools, and it grew and blossomed into other locations. And now that also was a catalyst for the Nawa Elementary program, right? So now we're down into grade 6 to 8 with the Nawa program in 8 different schools in Hamilton now.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so, and this year we just started a pilot, and that's with grades 4s and 5s.
Good.
And so they're doing project-based, determining what they want to do, working together, creating, whether it's a piece of artwork or, and it's really about connecting children and students and learners in meaningful ways through their culture and through their own ways of knowing and being to education, right?
Yes,
And so
yes.
we've kind of bridged the gap a little bit in terms of but there's still those early elementary students that need the support. And I think it's really important for us to advocate,
Definitely.
especially in education, that this should be intermixed and interconnected in everything that happens in schools, right? It shouldn't be an add-on or, we have this just for, it needs to be interconnected in our knowledges and learning and ways of knowing and being, like those hands-on, we talk about hands-on. So I'm a hands-on learner. I'm also visual, I need to see, but yes, I also need to hear. So I need all those things to happen for learning to occur. And I think that serves all students,
Yes.
not just Indigenous students, right?
Yes.
And I think, when we talk about those transitions too, because it's, some parents would come back and families would come back and say, it's like a culture shock to us. It's like a shock for my children, going from a space where they're acknowledged, they're honored, they are encouraged to make meaning of their own learning, to question, to theorize about their own things that they're in their world, into a school system where they have to, say miss or sir, and because that's not the way we were. We didn't, it's auntie, uncle, it's your name, it's your
More
identity.
family
Yes,
oriented.
yes,
It's that
very
cultural,
family and very
like
rooted
community, like that's there. But
Yeah.
on this other side, it's like, what happened?
It supports your identity. It's who you are, your
Yes.
identity formation. And when you transfer into, institutions that don't operate that way, there's a discourse, right?
Yes,
So,
definitely.
I think that we're certainly getting there and continuing to have conversations. But I think it's really important that we continue to look at ways that we can learn together and about alongside each other, like those teachings, right? Around the 2-row, like we're moving down the same path.
Right.
We still, our knowledges and our gifts and our bundles and our languages are what sustain us and in the other path for the folks, the settlers. But we can move alongside one another and we can share and we can learn from one another, but it doesn't have to just be one way, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes, many ways to learn. I also just want to mention too, Lisa Roberts and John Roberts. Do you work with them still?
Well, Lisa Roberts was one of the first educators at Aboriginal Head Start, right?
Yeah.
And Lisa was my daughter's teacher.
Oh, wow.
And so it's funny, we always joke with one another. She's like, yeah, your daughter was stuck to me like glue because we very much, she was very shy, introverted child. And so like bringing her into preschool for her was tough. So she'd always be kind of clinging to Lisa, and Lisa'd be walking around and my daughter would have her hands around her neck. So, but no, Lisa's fantastic.
Yes.
We worked with her, through Head Start, but also as she transitioned into the school board.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and she was on different boards of directors, so there's always that touch point. And we started some work with it right before the pandemic. With Lisa and some folks at the school board to kind of engage some other students in schools where the Nawe program wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So, we brought them down to Bindigan, the Wellbeing Center there, and we started doing different art activities, dance, so just giving an introduction and engagement for those Indigenous learners who don't have the access to Nawe. So she's fantastic.
Yeah,
she's
I met Lisa a lot, like again, way back. I knew she was very involved, same with her father, John Roberts, right? Because he was at Mary, it's a school, I don't want to say St. Mary, it wasn't Mary's
Queen
school.
Mary.
Queen Mary, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Queen Mary, I knew he had a very strong program there, right? And then Lisa came up underneath him and is continuing. So even another name I'm going to throw out there is Button, Melissa. Is she involved still? Where's her role?
I think she's an Indigenous lead for this Catholic school board last I heard. Yeah,
Wow.
so she decided to, I think she was, gently nudged. I think that's an important part because I think, I don't know about you, but I would have never went into management or leadership had I not been, I think mine was really to support someone who, I jumped into a position because someone was supporting their family.
Okay.
Would not have considered it. And I think with Melissa, same idea, right? Is that gentle nudge on the shoulder to say, maybe you should consider this. And I think she's doing really well.
I can share a little bit of the work that we're actually doing with Melissa now.
Sure.
So Melissa was a former Nawe advisor at Cathedral, a fantastic, phenomenal, supportive, knowledgeable, strong Quay, and her leadership really, it did. She blossomed and started working as the Indigenous lead at the Catholic School Board. So right now we're actually working, Nawasa and the Catholic School Board are working together to pilot an Anishinaabe-Moan language class in a different way though. So, typically under St. Charles they have all languages for different people, and it's like this instructional way of happening. You come to school on a Saturday morning and you sit in class and that kind of thing. But we wanted to do something different because we know that's just not going to work for our Indigenous families. And so we are pairing it with our grade 4-5 pilot project so that we have the Nawe elements of that with a language speaker coming in. So we're going to embed the language throughout all of the activities that are happening. So there's that language acquisition, but it's in a different way, right? So that's just going to actually start in the beginning of February.
Wow, good.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah, and Melissa's doing amazing work, and she's a champion. I think, and there's a great change happening.
Okay.
You know, change takes time.
Yes, it does.
It's slow.
Yes,
It's
it is.
not as quickly as we want it to be, but we definitely have champions, our Indigenous champions in different positions that are pushing things forward for
Good.
our families. And
Good. Yeah, and if you see her, when you see her, tell her I said hello, because I do remember, and because, again, just because of what we're doing right now, I had gone through some photographs. I have so much Hamilton community stuff of my time, and different things, reports, minutes, picture, photographs. We've downloaded about almost 2,000 images that from the collection of time. So from the very first powwows, and this is through NEPA, through Bond, like the other hats I used to wear. So we were always documenting. So when you're talking about that crew of, I remember Melissa, she had a whole crew under her, and there were some girls that were singers. Well, I have photographs of them on the parade float, right? So they were all dressed in their shawls and all that. So, but she had a really tight group. Same, another name I'd like to bring up is Stephanie Sky. Like, honest, there's another one. Same thing. It was like Mama Bear with her children and taking them to all these things, and really, our kids, in order for them to succeed, some of them needed this, to have these extra aunties and, kind of mamas to help guide them in that.
You talked about this idea of kind of bringing the students in, and one thing I want to share, and this is with my work at Mohawk and my team there, was around the Pathfinder program that I think would be really important in this community to talk about.
Okay, what is the Pathfinder program?
Yeah, so the Pathfinder program, I can't remember the first year, but it's been probably over 10 years now. And it really was an opportunity to bring students on campus and really demystify post-secondary.
Okay, I have, because I remember a few times they get things for attending for a couple days or a week or something?
It's usually about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And what you're talking about is the idea of like kind of bringing them in and really kind of nurturing them and having a safe space for them, not only to like be with other and build community with each other, but also like to explore their gifts. And so Pathfinder really did a good job. And I watched that. I watched, students come in, and I'm talking about a very short period of time, like 2 weeks, where they come in and they're a little bit jaded and maybe just a little trying to, come in with some sort of, I don't know, like there's just different energies, and then they start to get to know one another. They build community with their peers. They learn, and they feel valued and seen.
Okay.
Right? And so then they're there, and they know that they're important to the college. And you see a shift that happens so quickly, and much like that is what you're talking about with land-based education, is really bringing them out there. And I feel like over the years, we've really embraced that idea of having them do a general elective based in land-based education and being time with elders and aunties and having all of that knowledge be recognized, right, without making it super academically rigorous. Our ways are different rigorous, as we know. If we're spending time with elders or if we're picking medicines, it's a different rigor. And I think that, we talk about that acknowledgement. I think that Pathfinder has done a really good job at, searching out those youth and bringing them in. There's so many opportunities that education really can be, right, a safer place. And to just kind of redirect some of that energy around education from what we've experienced with our, with some of our family members that have experienced education in a very harmful way. So that's one thing I want to share, because it is quite, and it continues to be a beautiful experience for students.
Well, it sounds like between the two of you, you know of people, and you're doing yourself. You're developing alternative ways and solutions to deal with education of not being such a bad thing for us. Because I still make it interesting enough where, you feel part of a family, you feel like validated, you feel like you have purpose, right? And I always know when I talk to my kids and that, we talk about our gifts, right? Now Creator has all given us all gifts, and we hope to see what your gift is as you're going through the school system. I'm going to go a little bit beyond with this one. Your mom, because your mom was a nurse, right? So you feel your mom had a lot to do with this?
Absolutely.
Okay, I knew it.
Yeah, she was a huge role model for me, and she continues to be. She, you know, and I remember I was young when she was going to nursing school, and I watched her really struggle and having to do all of that. And I'm really proud of her. But her messaging always was, get your education, right? And so, yeah, I carry that with me. And my grandmother went to residential school. She went to Hogan, her mother. And so, again, one of the reasons, there's many reasons why I chose education as my life work, was really to honor both my grandmother and my mother too.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
Again, our moms are so important to us, right?
Yeah.
That knowledge base. And your daughter, I understand too. What your daughter, I actually worked with your daughter for a while. I don't know, I'm old or something, so I've been all over the place. But I worked with your daughter, actually, when we were dealing with the homeless. And where's she at?
She is now applying to Trent University to do her PhD.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So, and I want to just share the successes that we've had around Head Start. So one example is my daughter, who she will talk about her experience at Head Start, because for me, I couldn't give her what my dad couldn't give me because of residential school. So she talks about those early of receiving her first ribbon dress, and my son receiving his first ribbon shirt at Nawasa graduation, about learning about the medicines and having their first rattle that they've been gifted at, graduation. And she connects that back to her experiences, I guess, through mainstream education and the lack of seeing herself there. And so what drove her was that connection back to Head Start of wanting to go to post-secondary, again, around education. So she went to Trent and did Indigenous Studies and received her undergraduate degree, and then went to do her Master's of Education with a specialization in Indigenous education. And so she really relates that back to her early years experiences. And we have so many children and youth who've gone through Head Start and the Noway programs that come back and say the same things, that are musicians, that are artists, that they always want to come back and be part of the family. So we have parents that were in Head Start that went back to school. I think 3 of the leadership team at Nawasa right now were former parents of Head Start. Wow. Our youth advisor at Cathedral graduated out of Norway and went into college and came back to work for us. So we have this kind of cycle that's happening, that they're getting this experience of seeing that things can be different, and they want to give back to the community. So we have so many parents, students, family members that come back. And we just had a family, a mom who had 3 little ones, and she applied for an Noway elementary position, and she came and she talked to me. She was so excited. She's like, you don't know how long I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for my little ones to be big enough to be in school so I can come back and work at Nawasa, because I want to give back to Nawasa what you guys gave to my children and my family. So it's really just sense of, giving those opportunities to be connected in our community, in relationship with one another, but really just letting everyone's gifts, as we talked about, flourish and support those gifts and see them happening. It's this reciprocal relationship that's happening with us, right? And I probably could go on all day and talk about this, but like even seeing the students in elementary, we talked about beading a little bit, but they're making beautiful beadwork or medicine pouches, but they're also linking that to things like fashion and design. And some students are really interested in that. So we're bringing our Indigenous designers in, and they're connecting our traditional skills, our knowledges, to actually how to create their own businesses. And so it's really exciting to see the youth. They're amazing artists and different skills that everyone else has. Somebody has a fantastic skill in building and making things. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, you can be an engineer and architect, right? But it's allowing those opportunities to learn through our own ways of knowing and being that support that, right? Because I wouldn't think, most of them didn't connect, learning how to bead with actually supporting their family at times when they have to sell those pieces of art that they have, right? So they're contributing to their community. So it's really just beautiful to see that relationship that's happening.
And I fully agree with you there. It starts when they're little kids. Once that seed is planted as a little kid, You know, they feel strong. And lately, that's going to be the next, that's something we'll have to, our next project, this planted seeds or seeds planted, because through the talks, we keep bringing that up too. We're planting seeds. Mm-hmm. You've planted a lot, Monique. You've planted a lot, Leah. So we're going to wind down now. And so if anything, I want to leave you with this. What would be your, what do you think your legacy, what do you want to leave behind for your kids? Like what message for future? Oh, it's Monique.
Make me cry.
You want Leah go first, then you think about it?
Well, it's okay. It's just going to make me emotional.
Don't worry, I cried yesterday.
Well, we always, Grandma Renee says crying is tears, it's healing medicine.
Yes,
it's medicine.
Yes.
I think, I don't know if it's my legacy, but I hope that I could at least contributed to our Indigenous community and our families changing the path a little bit. And for me, the thing that I would like to see, if there's anything that it could be, it would be that we can learn in our traditional ways on the land, with our animal people, with our plant people, with our elders, with our grandparents, the way that was intended. And that is viewed as valid.
Beautiful words. You made me cry. Appreciate your tears. I share my tears with you. So what would you like to leave behind? What's,
oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm looking at my daughter right now, and she's a young artist coming up. So I guess just, the idea that our community is strong, and I would love for education to not become safe, but to actually be safe again. Mm. And for people to not feel reluctant to walking their children to that door, as we know has been happened over the years.
Yes.
And much like what was shared today about the validation of our knowledge systems, and hopefully having space within academics that actually honor and value our ways of being, what I hope would be one of the legacies.
That's good words, powerful words. Thank you. I admire both of you ladies. You've done a lot in this community. You have really changed things, in a positive way. And I can't wait in time to see what you guys do when you are gray and older and grandmas, okay? But I thank you very much for coming and taking the time to be here, a part of our journey right now. And just to give you a heads up, we are looking at having a conference in March, I think it's 9th, 10th, 11th. It's already booked at the Convention Center. We are hoping to invite 200 Indigenous people to come to it. And we're going to talk about these issues. Mm-hmm. And we're going to let Hamilton know we're here. We're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's only going to get bigger with what we want to do, right? So then we're now, that's it. And thank you very much.